All right. Well, welcome everybody to the January Terraform and Azure community call. It's our first call of the new year. Uh, as usual, if it's your first time, we just like to go over this. It's nothing crazy here, but just make sure to please be respectful, be a nice person, and we will really enjoy your company as long as we all treat each other with respect. And yeah. Now, first thing, I guess, point zero is Happy New Year, everybody. This is our second full year of the Terraform and Azure community, so it's really been great to get to know everyone and continue to have these community calls and see people come out. Hopefully, this year is just more terraforming, more learning, and we have a lot of new faces. These community calls, when we first started them, we were in maybe like the attendance numbers of like 15 to 20. Now we're at almost 100, so that's really awesome to see and really thank everyone for spreading the word and also just for coming through. So let's hope for even more members of the community, and let's hope that we all continue to grow together in our Terraform and Azure world and development. So as always, I always like to start with the overview, just to really give the rundown, especially for the first timers. Myself and some of there's Mark Gray who will sometimes be on here. The two of us are from a team in Microsoft called the Azure Deployments team. Our real goal is to make sure that Azure is the choice for all developers, IT folks, DevOps engineers, cloud architects. And really, our hope is that we can meet you where you're at with a frictionless and really first class experience developing on Azure using your tool of choice. So, our team manages ARM templates, we manage Bicep, and we manage Terraform. And actually, we all three of us are on the same page in terms of those product teams that we believe that choosing a tool is a bit like going to an ice cream shop. Just because you like chocolate doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a good chocolate when you're at the ice cream shop. And just because you like strawberry doesn't mean you can't enjoy a good strawberry. So whatever your flavor is that you prefer, our team is really making sure that we support that. And why community? Why did we start this whole thing? Well, there's a number of components. We always are valuing your feedback, and we want to take your feedback through these community calls and also through conversations with all of you. And we also want you to feel like you're contributing to the improvement of your experience. We've found that a huge help for people is when they're able to voice their opinion to us and we actually are able to take that and address it. And before they felt like, oh, where is Microsoft and all this? Are we really caring? Are we involved? There's also the importance of getting to talk about what you care about. There is right there a link that you can click. If you can't click it, it's aka.ms/aztfcc speakers. We welcome different community call speakers, and we are trying as often as we can to talk as little as possible. In this community call, hopefully, it will be more of that. And we also want all of you to be up to date with what we have coming down the pipeline. So I know that a lot of you have joined this community call, but we actually do a lot outside of the community as well. Here is just a list of some of the things that we're doing. If you joined the community already, great. If you haven't, please make sure to fill out that form. And you can also join our Slack. The Slack is great, and we have some really cool people. I'll just call out Mark Tinderholt, Azure Terraformer, as some of you may know him as a person who not only has his video on, but also is very active on the Slack and helping people out. So join and you can interact with people like him. There's some other really cool people on the Slack who uh, are there, and we always try to check that every day or two and make sure that we also get to your issues. Uh, Again, if you want to present at a community call, fill out that form. We do have a blog post that we try to update. We originally called it a bi-monthly update. We are still attempting to do a bi-monthly update, but if you've been keeping track, we haven't had one since August, which goes to show that the holidays are truly a sinkhole for getting some things out. We are working on that though, and we're going to try to get it out very, very soon. Apologies to anyone who's been waiting for it. And then we have a YouTube channel. We have videos in there, including one for Azure Export for Terraform. We also record the community calls and upload them onto that channel. So make sure to follow and subscribe there so that you can watch the recordings or any other new video content that comes out. And then Twitter or X, just go ahead and follow Azure Terraform there, and you can learn more about us. So one last thing, we are actually beginning another round of user research, and all of you, if you're joining this call, are users. So we want to make sure to get your feedback, specifically on the AZ API provider. If you are using AZ API or interested in using AZ API, make sure to scan that QR code, and we'll schedule some time, hopefully with at least a good portion of all of you, to talk about the AZ API provider. We have some, I guess I can say, in this little community call, we have some new things that we're trying out, and we want to definitely get your feedback to make sure that it works for what you're hoping to accomplish. So give that a scan, fill out the form, and we will go ahead and make sure to get in touch with you. And that wraps it up for me. I'm going to hand it over to Jeff. Jeff, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and I'll let you take over from here.
Sorry, Stephen, can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, I was just having some audio device issues. Okay, cool. So are we off and running, or?
I think so. Why don't you go ahead and start the deck? Let me
Cool.
note.
Yeah, I should be able to. Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Mark, for letting us do this. So my name is Jeff Avon, co-founder of the project. Kieran Rimmer is online as well. He'll do some demoing a little bit later. So we first met Mark through another Microsoft colleague, probably about 6-7 months ago, maybe. Might even been a touch more. And we started an open source project called StackQL, probably about close to 2 years ago. So myself and Kieran and the other co-founder that's involved, we're all data people, I guess, from way back, as you can probably tell from the gray hairs. But we are also spent the last decade and a bit living in the cloud engineering world, in projects across all three hyperscalers, and then a bunch of alt cloud and SaaS solutions as well. And we saw, as we were starting to get involved in projects, and we were starting to get asked to to provide different attestations and control states for different cloud providers, we found that there was no real good way to collect all this information and to be able to display it and analyze it. And we sort of thought, well, why don't we just use SQL for this? And then it became, okay, well, hold on. Why don't we just use SQL as a DSL to do a lot of things that are sort of whether it's provisioning, deprovisioning, sysops, CSPM, etc. So this is sort of where the genesis for StackQL came up with. So this is a unified analytics and XOps, provisioning, deprovisioning framework using SQL. So we're saying here multi-cloud visibility, automation, and operations. So we'll go more into what this project is. So it's an intelligent API client. So it actually allows us to interrogate providers' Open API Open API specifications. That's essentially our provider interface. So we don't build off of SDKs or anything like that. We actually take the provider's Open API spec, which I'll talk a little bit more about, especially with respect to Azure, and we map out routes, SQL routes and SQL methods from that specification. So we have a hierarchy, provider service resource. If you think of your standard database hierarchy, you've got database schema, table, database schema view. It's very similar in terms of the way we look at things. We essentially look at cloud providers as data sources, which again you can interact with as far as mutating data, creating services, changing the state of services, as well as querying the state of them. So provider service resource, the provider would be Azure, service would be compute, resource would be virtual machines, as an example. Then all the methods that we use are going to be SQL methods: select, insert, delete, update, and then where we can't map a CRUD method, we use exec. So things like starting a VM, stopping a VM, attaching a NIC, detaching a NIC, etc. And then every resource has fields. And again, these are fields that we get from the Open API specification. So we support all the relational algebra. So that's all the set-based operations, your joins, your unions, and we could do some pretty cool things as far as that goes. We've essentially built a SQL parser, a fully fledged SQL parser, and pluggable backends, and we'll show some examples of this. So what can you use it for? Reporting and analysis. So we do a lot of consulting work, and we've actually done several audits for clients where they've asked if they've had multi-cloud estates, or they've had sort of complex sprawling estates that had different SaaS solutions involved. And we've done audits where we've generated reports for people in terms of their cloud inventory, CSPM, cloud security posture management. That's a really common one. We've worked in a lot of highly regulated industries that have a lot of strict controls around the use of public cloud. So but by the way, we're both from Australia. So yeah, so we're dialing in from Australia. But yeah, we've worked on projects that have required control state attestations and so forth, and that this is a use for that. User access management entitlements. This is an interesting one, and we've gotten involved with this in a few different places where people use an IDP like Azure AD, like Okta, like ForgeRock, like Ping, what have you, and then they'll have a resource provider that could be Azure, could be Okta, could be GitHub, could be whatever, and it's sort of difficult to get a list of identities, the properties for those identities, and then what they're entitled to within the estate across all the resource providers. And because of our ability to join things, we can actually give these entitlements reports for across all the resource providers that we've got coverage for. So also things like FinOps, which is a big thing. A lot of times people have sprawling estates, and as much as we'd like them to drive everything through one channel, which might be Terraform, oftentimes we'll have estates where, oh, how did that get there? I didn't know that VNet was there. Where'd that come from? Yeah, people click ops things. People use CLIs and SDKs and CDKs and other methods. So you end up with, in the enterprise, you end up with a lot of sprawling estates. So being able to do some reporting around that. And then also within the IAC, DevOps, SysOps side of things, we can provision things. So we can provision things using insert statements. We can also do, essentially multi-cloud provisioning. So we can provision identities and then provision applications or resources within the same batch. Lifecycle ops, starting, stopping, attaching, detaching, and so forth, as well as IAC validation. This is an interesting one. So if I have a Terraform routine, we've got some different methods where we can actually go and do some validation. That could be for compliance, or it could be for just verification. So there's a method we've got called StackQL assert, which is in our GitHub Actions. I'll talk a bit more about that later, but I'll keep going on. So essentially, StackQL is a self-contained dev tool where we can operate standalone. We can also operate with an external backend database. We have a provider registry, which I'll talk about more in a second, which is essentially similar to Terraform registry. This is where we get all of our providers: AWS, Azure, Google, DigitalOcean, Okta, GitHub. I can go on and on. And then we query the cloud providers. So it's relatively simple, but there's sort of a lot of sophistication inside the project itself. So our provider registry. So this is essentially our plugins. So our providers, like I said, instead of them being SDK based, they are Open API based, Open API 3 based. So they are Open API specifications with some syntactic sugar or some extensions, but they're legal Open API documents. So this is where and I'll show some examples. So essentially, we map out the routes to operations. So we say that a select operation for this resource will point you into this particular operation ID within the specification. And that can be overloaded as well. So for instance, Azure has a lot of methods of, get something, and then there's get by subscription, get by resource group. So all those things would be the same resource, and the method signature would just route to the appropriate operation. So if you said select XXX where from resource where subscription ID equals something, and resource group equals something, we would pick the appropriate route or the appropriate operation to map that to. So I'm not sure. Can I share my screen as well here, Stephen?
Yeah, go ahead and share your screen.
It looks like it's blocked. Yeah, it's grayed out.
Give me a second. Let's fix that.
Hey, Stephen, it's Kieran here as well. I'm in the same situation. I have no way of all the login flows are blocked for me, so I've had to join as a guest, and I'm totally grayed out from present too. Yeah.
Let me fix that real quick. Okay. Give me a sec, guys.
I'll keep going in the meantime. Okay, so how do we get it? So you can download it from the website. We've got brew install, we've got Chaco install, we've got pip install, we've got packages in npm. So again, if you wanted to use whatever method, these are essentially wrappers. We've got wrappers in Python and Node, as well as just the straight CLI. We've also got Docker images that are built with StackQL in them. We've actually got a StackQL server image that's sort of pushed up to Docker as well. We have actions in the GitHub marketplace. So set up StackQL is very similar to set up Terraform, but we also have one called StackQL exec and one called StackQL assert. So the StackQL assert one is where I can actually go and run queries and look for expected results or expected row counts. So like, I'll show some examples of this later if I can get the sharing stuff going. Okay, how can I use it? So we've got an interactive command shell, StackQL shell. We'll show some examples of this stuff. We've got StackQL exec, which I can use in batches. Like I can use that through GitHub Actions or any sort of CI routine. We also have a server that we can run. So we can run a Postgres wire protocol server. Doesn't mean we are Postgres, but we can essentially emulate a Postgres server. And you can then connect to this with PSQL, or you can connect to it with PsychoPG or any of the Postgres wire protocol clients. We also have the GitHub Actions I mentioned, which I can use this within pipelines natively. You can use this from Jupyter Notebooks. You can use this from Power BI. You can use this from all your other BI tools, because again, we can sort of look to tools like we're a normal database, even though we're actually not. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so just before we get into the demo, there's one other thing. If I can share here. Stephen, were you able to see if you could share?
Yeah, so you are a presenter. I'm not sure why it's not letting you share your screen.
Okay, well, maybe because you're sharing. Maybe, I don't know. Is it?
Maybe. Let me see if this works. Let's see. If I stop sharing real quick, how's that go?
It's still grayed out. Only meeting organizers and presenters can share.
You are a presenter.
Okay, that's interesting. So on my thing it says meeting guest.
Interesting.
So when I look at the attendees, it says meeting guest. There's no way to like elevate me in the meeting, is there?
I think there's a unique link that you would have to join through, because I don't have an option here that lets you suddenly share your screen.
Right, let's see. So yeah, I joined the event using the link that you gave me.
Okay, let's see if this works. Hold on. Did that work? Try sharing something now.
Yes. Perfect.
Awesome,
yeah.
awesome.
Okay. Hey, Steve, sorry to interject. Could you try the same for myself as well? Because I'm in exactly the same situation.
Yes.
I've been dropping out over and over again to try and fix it.
So we gave you. I guess they must have done a change with Teams over the new year where adding you as a presenter is not the same as making you a presenter in the call itself. But now we're good, so I'll leave it to you two. Cool. Sorry for the difficulties, everyone.
No, it's all good, Stephen. So, just could quickly show that this is our provider registry, and I'll talk about how we sort of curate things to get in here. But essentially, if we look at our providers, these are our providers. If I look at something like Azure, and I go into here. Our providers are essentially just open API documents. But if I go down, there'll be a components StackQL resources in here somewhere. There it is, which is what maps the operations. And if we go down a little bit further, there's going to be SQL verbs. So I see a select, insert, update, delete, and they map to an operation or to a method, and then the method maps to an operation. And we can also route to what the appropriate information within the response is. So if you see here, like this object key, we can drill into a response body and get a particular field back that's of interest. And we'll show a little bit more when we demo stuff. But essentially, that's the plugin. So instead of it being code based, instead of it being Golang based, it's essentially the providers are documents, and that includes we can embed views in these documents, so that you can have predefined views that can actually simplify the output schema for things. I'll just quickly talk about the Azure provider generation process, because this is probably of specific interest to you guys. So we have this project called StackQL Azure OpenAPI. So as you know, Azure doesn't publish a direct OpenAPI schema. You have to use auto REST to actually generate same way you generate Python, PowerShell, etc. SDKs. So we use auto REST and the Azure REST API specs, which are JSON schemas, to generate OpenAPI schemas for every service in Azure. So like every service in Azure, and what we've done is we've broken them into, this is in our dev registry. We have got a new provider for Azure coming out very soon, but we've divided them to Azure, Azure Extras, Azure ISV, Azure Stack. So Azure ISV is like all your Datadog and Databricks and New Relic and so forth. And then Azure Stack is everything related to Azure Stack. And Azure Extras is pretty much everything that's sort of non-core, and we had to make some sort of judgment calls. But Azure is sort of all the core services, compute, storage, Cosmos DB, cognitive services, etc. But to get there, we have this project called StackQL Azure OpenAPI, where we can actually generate this sort of a bunch of information. I'll send around all these links afterwards. But we end up with a tagged specification. So we end up with an OpenAPI specification for Azure for every one of the services. I think we actually push these ones in. We don't know. But that's essentially how we get these Azure specs. And then we have another project, which is called OpenAPI Source, which we use to actually add that StackQL resources bit. So that's sort of how we get there. It's an interesting process, but we've got it down to it's all automated. And like I said, I've generated the latest Azure provider, which covers every single service that Azure has. Some of them might be deprecated, by the way, too. And we can smash that out in a matter of less than a day, including all of our tests. So it's pretty cool. So anyway, look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to pass the baton over to Kieran to take over and show some other stuff. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Okay, guys, let me just share my entire screen. This is I spent the first probably 20 minutes coming in and going back out because I couldn't see the shares icon. So I thought if I log in and do everything, I'll be able to share, but it didn't work. So thanks, Steve. Okay, I'm going to share my whole screen. Here we go. Entire screen. Here we go. Yep. Beauty. Okay. You're going to see some yuck stuff first, but I'll just go over this. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to go, we'll just go for broke here. So please interject if stuff just flat out isn't working. I can't hear anything right now, so assuming that means we're working. So so sweet. All I'm going to demo is just like bootstrap StackQL server with Terraform, because I figure this is a Terraform group, so I'll just go for that. If that doesn't work, there's one I baked at home earlier, which will work, subject to me doing a little bit of fiddling around. So this is just based purely on the Microsoft demo container, a Microsoft container instance Terraform thingy. So I've just got this is just a base 64 encoded certificate, public whatever certificate for my client, just for some OpenSSL stuff I've generated so that we can log into StackQL over PostgreSQL protocol using mutual TLS. So all going well. Now I should be able to just my memory not being the greatest, I'll need to copy and paste. Whoops. Just have to copy and paste. Yep, this one right here. So Terraform. Oh, here we are. Yep, I'm just going to have to run that and remember Terraform apply. Okay, so let's just see if this does work. I figure, let's go for it. So just going to create a Terraform container instance. It's that unsophisticated. I haven't done anything to make this persistent or bulletproof or anything like that. So what this is doing is just creating one with some secret environment variables that are going to enable us to talk to various providers. I think we'll just keep it on the straight and narrow. If everything works, we'll just do a quick query against Amazon to prove that we can do this stuff, and then that'll be enough. So just creating a Terraform, just creating a container instance running StackQL. It's just going to spit out the certificate that I need to include in my local server certificate. Sorry, that I need to include it. Oh, hey, fever. Including my local setup for that to work. So then I think it is. Let me just go over here. Okay, this is the one. Okay. Jeez. My resource group called here. I've just called it. Yep, I've got a resource group that's been created as part of this, and I've got a. Okay, yep, okay, cool. That's easy. So then I've got a container instance name, a container group name, whatever it's called. So we'll see this one. So all I'm doing here is I just want to see the startup log. It's crude as that. It's inside the startup log. It's going to spit out this encoded thing here. So it's now just a case of today's the day that everything decides to not work. I can't tab between different this one here. Okay. So this is all, again, this is not private key stuff. This is just certificates. This should give me. So now I'll do this. This is just some shell script. Oh, mate, seriously. I will run this script. It will spit out a connection string for me, plus or minus one of the things I need. Sweet. So now I just have to run this. I just need to replace one part. So this is all just off running on exactly that stuff I just set up with Terraform. Whoops. Don't want that. Not now. I just need my fully qualified domain name, which was spit out on the Terraform create. And I should be able to just straight up connect to this baby. If this doesn't work, we'll go for the backup that I cooked at home earlier. Cool. So here we go. Work. Not. Huh. All right. Let's go straight for the one that I baked at home earlier. I've done something wrong with the setup here. So that snazzy demo won't work. This guy over here, I've got one that I baked at home earlier. So it's called slightly different. Oh, I'll have to run this again. So I'll run that again. This one's called the prequel. The fully qualified domain name's a little different. Oh, whoops. Cripes. Wouldn't you know it? Certificate verified.
I think somebody said swap 1 for 2 or something like that. I'm not sure if it's in the host name, maybe.
Nah, so that one's done. It's ooh, someone said that. Oh, well, yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Yep. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, okay. This will be. You give me 1 second. I'll just try and join the one I baked earlier. I know what you mean, and yeah, I stuffed that up. It's too late. Let me just go here. Yep. Oh man.
I mean, I could probably show some other quick stuff just while you're doing that.
Yeah, cool, mate. Do that.
Swap over.
Yep, do that.
Yeah. So so what Kieran's trying to show is, so this is, we talked about StackQL server. So we're just building a server in a container instance that's listening on the Postgres wire protocol, which then you could connect to like a BI tool or anything like that. But I'll just quickly show you some other quick sort of context while Kieran's sort of getting that stuff together. So I'm assuming everyone can see my screen. Yeah. So I mentioned that we've got a command shell, like an interactive command shell, as well as the the server stuff and the exec stuff. But so I've just opened a command. I've downloaded StackQL binary into Azure Cloud Shell, and I've just run up the StackQL interactive command shell. I've got some creds in here for AWS as well as for obviously Azure. I'm off to Azure. So we have the providers I mentioned, show providers. If I wanted to say registry list, these are all the providers we've got in the public registry. As a matter of fact, I'm connected to the dev registry. So we've got things like Cloudflare, DigitalOcean, obviously all the hyperscalers here, AWS, Azure. So if I wanted to pull something, like let's say I wanted to pull Datadog, I would say registry pull Datadog, not Datadog, just as an example. And then if I say show providers, I can see now that I've got the Datadog provider installed. So that's how we get the plugins installed. That's essentially those provider registry that we talked about. So then sorry, I'm back. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Can everyone hear me? Yep.
Yeah, you're good.
Yep.
You're good.
Yeah. So so I mentioned about the hierarchy. So if I say show services in Azure, this shows me all the services in Azure. I could say, like container, let's say, and I could see all the services that are, like container. And then I could say something like, I don't know, does anyone have a favorite service, something they want to look at? Any ideas? Make this interactive.
My vote's AKS.
AKS, all right, okay. So I'll say,
Let's go.
let's say AKS. Right, so there's, so hybrid AKS. There should be an AKS one as well. I think because I've got actually, hold on, let me do this. Registry pull Azure again. Yeah, that's better. There should be an AKS service. Yeah, okay, I'm not sure. There's a new provider that, let me do this. Let me get out of here and let me say. Okay. Show services in Azure, like AKS.
Is it querying based on like the resource type? Because if it's like
Oh no,
the
this is correct. This is correct. This is correct. I just had the wrong provider on. I had the
okay.
previous generation provider. So you can see there's an AKS service. I could also say, where name is equal AKS. Okay, so there's the AKS service. So now I can say show resources in AKS. Sorry, Azure.aks. And there's all your resources in Azure AKS. So I've got agent pools, managed clusters. I don't know, do you want to pick one to drill into? We can say clusters here. So manage clusters. I'll go and do this.
I'm back, by the way, Jeff. I can actually
Okay.
connect to the
Yeah.
bloody thing. So sorry, you
Okay.
just finish your
So
thoughts.
I'll just finish off this. But again, I've got a resource, so I can say, okay, describe. We'll say describe extended, and paste. Describe. Yeah. Okay. So there's the fields here. So again, this comes directly from the specification. There's a response body. All the gold is in properties, and I'll show you. You can get that stuff out. So as a matter of fact, I've got here some ones I pre-baked earlier. So I'll just quickly run this query and then I'll get out. So here I'm going to run. This is not AKS. This is just virtual machines. But you can see how like there's a properties object. The properties object has all the gold in it. So I'm just going to run this query, which is going to say, get me the ID, name, location, and VM size for all the virtual machines. And you can see I've got an in clause. So I've got I've got 5 resource groups. The beauty of this is we will query all of those asynchronously and bring all the results back at the same time. So it's intelligent enough to say, all right, that's actually 5 different queries. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it look like one query. I'm going to run them all asynchronously and bring them back. And you can see here, we're bringing back all of our inventory across all of our resource groups in that list in one operation. And the other thing that's cool is because we are, I've got AWS creds here. Again, I'm in Cloud Shell and, oops, oh yeah, I got to do registry pull AWS. I can run a query from, I can query my AWS estate from here. I could query Google from here. I could query Okta from here. Again, I haven't installed any SDKs. I haven't installed any, all I've done is just say registry pull AWS, had my AWS creds. So we use a lot of our auth is modeled off of Terraform. So all the variables and all the Terraform auth, will work for StackQL. That's intentional. But yeah, you can see here that we can do quite a bit in terms of ad hoc querying. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it back to Kieran to continue on here.
Yep, thanks, mate. I'm just going to share the entire screen and let's go.
And
right.
Kieran, while you're talking, if Jeff, you could just help answer some of those questions in the chat for everyone, or actually we can just do a Q&A after everybody or all the demos are done, so that the recording also has
I'll
the
look
questions and
through the
answers.
stuff while we're going. Yeah, cool.
Thanks, guys. So yep, okay. So I'm just going to go with the pre-baked one. I'm not well, if time permitting, I can have a look at the other one because I've actually included secrets for other providers. But here we go. All right. So that was a nice illustration before that if we don't have the service certificates all present correct, then we don't get to join. So now we're joined. We're just in here. I mean, some of this, you're not seeing quite the perfectly polished everything you'd like to see with an actual Postgres instance, but we can see that we actually do have TLS correctly set up here because all credentials are present and correct on both sides. Now, because we're using container instance, what happened before with my pre-baked version was the container just restarted and so generated a new service certificate, which I didn't have. So therefore, the one I was using was wrong, and we were locked out. So that's kind of, in a way, it's nice, but just an illustration of this how hairy this demo actually is. So I'm in here, so there shouldn't be any providers. So as Jeff probably talked through, that we actually use, we have this show providers command. Oh, there is one. Oh, wait, there is one. Maybe I pulled it for. Let me just pull another one, so I can just do all the commands that even Postgres doesn't support. We can still do easily enough over the wire protocol. Let's just pull down the Google provider, and we should be able to see that. Okay. Okay, so then if I do again show providers, I should see that I now have Google and Amazon present. No worries. So in this particular container instance, I've only just included credentials only for Amazon, and that's done, like Jeff was just alluding to, just purely using like those environment variables that Amazon likes you to use for your CLI, and also Terraform uses as well. We're doing this so intentionally, like Jeff said. So I just have one nice little pre-canned query. I'm just going to look at all the Amazon virtual machines, which are, full disclosure, we've created these using our startup credits with Amazon, and played around with to set things up. So I should see a bunch of virtual machines, EC2 instances sitting in this. There we go, back. So like Jeff was saying, that's just that's running in real time, just using the REST API for Amazon, which is old school. So all these different interfaces have their own eccentricities. I don't have Google credentials, so I can't issue a query against Google. Do we want to get adventurous, Jeff? And I can try and join my other container instance and then bang a few queries against Google, or do you want to just
Oh no,
wrap up?
it's up to you. It's up to you, man.
Okay, look, give me, yeah, let's just give me 2 minutes, guys. So I'll demonstrate what I was trying to demonstrate before, and if it doesn't work,
I can answer questions while we're doing this as well too, by the way. So I've just gone through the list here. So there was a lot of services mentioned. We've got coverage for all those. Does the query run against state, or am I understanding it? So it does not run against state. These are live queries. They're hitting the APIs directly. So they are querying the estate directly. So these aren't state file type things. So, we're querying the current environment. Is it using the ARM resource type name convention? Okay, so we've modeled this directly after the ARM resource manager. So we generate the provider, as I mentioned, off auto REST and Azure REST API specs. All the control plane is covered. So everything I've showed you is all the control plane. It's all the resource manager. We have started to build some data plane services. So we are starting to build a Azure Container Registry data plane service, which essentially means you can query your container registry with your endpoint. But the rest of them are all sort of ARM resource manager based. What's the purpose of StackQL? Is it just a query? So predominantly we're showing queries here. We can do a lot of other stuff. So we can scaffold an entire environment using StackQL, and we've done that before. So it is a unified analytics and IAC tool. So we can use it as a complement to Terraform, or you can actually use it to provision things, much like you would do with the CDK. So much like people are doing with things like Pulumi or other CDK variants, where they allow you to have Python or TypeScript or JavaScript. We're essentially an SQL SDK for all the cloud providers. So again, you can mutate, you can query. I'm just going to rip through these things. Terraform AKS. So the naming convention, we've tried to keep as pure to the Azure API spec as possible. We have our resource names don't come from, so whereas Terraform can sort of come up with some preform names and things like that, we essentially inherit a lot of our names directly from the API specs. And we try to be as true to the API as possible. Do you ever run into throttling by ARM or AWS management APIs? So there are some things that are rate limited, but most of the queries that we do, rate limiting isn't an issue. And we've also built a lot of backend magic for pagination and those sort of things as well. Okay, some other things here. Follow up. So other clouds, the resource schema would conform to whatever platform. Correct. Yeah, there is no custom schema to learn. That's correct. So the schemas come from the Open API specifications for the different providers. And in the case where they don't publish one, we can derive one through the ways that I talked about. So again, the taxonomy is the same. It's just a question of, obviously Google will have different names for VMs than Azure will, and so forth. Sorry, Kieran, I'm going to hand back to you.
Yeah, it's okay. So we've got a happy story over here, guys. So after my earlier on bungling, I don't know if you've watched, but it's just been pretty raw stuff. So didn't rehearse any of this, but I thought it's worth a shot. I'll just try and be natural, and we'll do it. So I'll just replay what we've done here. So I just download, because now I've started another instance, number 2, and thank you for the kind pointing out that I didn't have my OpenSSL config file with the correct server name. Hence, we couldn't log in, and further evidence that our mutual TLS setup actually works. So then it's just like I got no idea what I'm going to query now, because I can't, my memory, I'm 45 years old and I never had a great memory when I was in my 20s. So I just come in here and I know that I remembered, I'll be honest, that there is an endpoint. So we do have a resource called google.compute.instances. So I want to see how the hell do I query it. I was like, there's one method here, aggregated list, which equates to a SQL verb of select, which is what I want to show you guys and hopefully impress. And there's one required parameter, which is project. So I remember we've got a project. I remember that we also do have, we do have a project called StackQL demo, and I have a service account shared, mounted to, or not mounted to, but I have a service account in a secret environment variable on this container instance, so I can probably talk to it. Just look at a couple of things here and just go, okay, this is easy. I'll just select the ID and name from all the compute instances in my testing project, and lo and behold, yeah, I get them back. So I think I've just recapitulated the Amazon query I ran before on the other container instance. Should work. It does. Yep. So that one's fine. So I can talk to Google. I can talk to Amazon. Now this is just bleeding edge stuff. I didn't use your workload identity object, whatever it might be. I haven't attached that to the container, but I have put in some Azure environment variables into this container as well. So let's just see if I can actually also talk to Azure. Strange as it sounds, I haven't even tried talking to the hosting provider yet. So let me just see. So I'm going to show services. Oh my God! First of all, let's registry for Azure. We'll try talk to Microsoft Azure. Okay. Show services in Azure. I just want to see. I can't remember again what we've got there. So wow. So then there's a lot there. So I'll just say show services in Azure, and just the usual SQL type reject, whatever you call it, matching language. Right. Hopefully we have something that looks like compute. Okay. All right. Cool. There's a compute show. I got to spell it right, or else it's not going to work, is it? So resources in Azure compute. Okay. So we've got virtual machines. So I'm going to say show methods in Azure.compute.virtualmachines and see what we got, and we'll just try and see that, and then I'll be done after that. So this is with the latest provider Jeff was just talking about. Okay, so I've got one where I can list just by subscription ID. So let me virtual machines. Somebody select. So describe. I'm going to describe this. We'll give this one shot and then we're out. Okay, cool. I'm just going to select ID and name again. Let's try that. Give me 1 second. I'll have to just copy paste my subscription ID. Subscription ID. Now I'm going to have to click across to my Azure console. I think I've got one open. Oh, God damn it. I do have hopefully the subscription ID in here somewhere. No. Give me 1 second. 1 second. I'll just go through the pane. Go in, sign in, and we can just copy paste the subscription ID. It's here somewhere. Cool. I can always copy. There we go. Bang. Okay. Cool. Here we go. The moment of truth. Can I talk to Azure as well as Microsoft? Sorry, as well as Amazon and Google. Yep. Bang. There we are. So that name's a bit ugly. So we probably use one of our regex functions. Let's try. Let's just try one live. Like I promise this will be the last thing. We'll just try and pretty this up. So as select. Let's use one of these. We just co-opted a bunch of the SQLite and or Postgres. So hopefully this will do it. And then whoops. It should be split part and name. Oh, that's ID. Yep. And I'll alias this as pretty ID. Okay. Hopefully we get a nice, pretty looking output now. Yeah. Okay. So now I've just have I done that right? Oh yeah. Oh well, there we go. The name
that's
just
correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
They're close to the same thing. So yeah. So that's basically it. Like if I wanted to be really slick, what we can, like Jeff alluded to, we can do views and all sorts of stuff and materialize views. Because these containers are ephemeral, I thought let's not take the risk. I can talk to all three. We can run queries that would actually join information from all three different providers, but that's effectively all I wanted to show today. So I'll hand back to Jeff now. Thanks for tolerating my bungling. We got there in the end. Thanks very much.
That's all good. Yeah. So, all right, I'm just going to quickly wrap this because I know we're sort of at the end here. Let's just do this. Okay. So where we're at, again, we've got coverage for multiple different providers. I'll send around this pack and some links afterwards. The GitHub Action stuff, I'll just quickly, within 5 seconds, go through that. So this is where we're using this alongside Terraform. So we're using this StackQL assert method. And I've baked in some queries in this particular repo where I'm saying check instances, check Terraform instances, run compliance checks. So essentially I think this example is Google. We're looking to say is there buckets that are publicly, where I haven't enforced public access prevention. And then what we can do is we can bake that into to a CI workflow here, where like if you come down here, I've got a Terraform init, a Terraform validated, Terraform plan, and apply, and then I run a compliance check using the StackQL assert, and this should actually fail. So I'm saying run that query. Your expected row count is 0. If you get anything else than 0, the workflow fails. So just some ones that I baked earlier here, just again to show an example. So we can look here and we can say that actually that's expired because I haven't run it for a while. But essentially, yeah, like we can run things within an actions workflow to do some compliance and validation. Again, using this as a complement to Terraform. Okay, what's next? We're doing more and more providers. We've got a new version of Azure that's coming out within the next couple of days. That's in our dev registry at the moment. We're also doing a bunch more work around prepared statements, complex SQL. We started a bunch of work around ACID and transactions, where we can actually have a transaction block, could potentially span multiple clouds, including rollback, support GraphQL, gRPC protobuf. Okay, so what you can do, first of all, you can star us. That would be awesome. And give us your support. We've got a whole stack of stuff on GitHub, which I'll send around links to everything here. We're looking for queries and use cases could be single cloud, could be multi-cloud. We want more queries, more use cases. Again, we've got a view mechanism where we can actually incorporate views into our providers. So we've got a mechanism that people can contribute those things. It'd be really good to get some Azure feedback from you guys in terms of what you think we've done well with the Azure provider and what's missing, where the gaps are. That would be really good. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. So look, I hope, apologies for going 5 minutes over. But yeah, Stephen, I'll hand back to you. I think I've answered most of the questions in the chat as well. So yeah, hopefully we've covered everything off, and I can send the follow-up information to Stephen to share. And happy to answer any questions. We've got no time commitments. I know you guys might. We can stick around as long as you want. So yeah, far away if you do have questions.
Awesome. Really appreciate the StackQL folks. As hopefully you've seen, we really wanted to bring in these guys because we think that this can supplement your cloud native workflows or anything that you're kind of doing multi-cloud related. It's not explicitly like a Terraform provider, but it is something that we think could be useful. So glad that they got a chance to kind of show that, and hopefully that was helpful for all of you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. It's really, I'm going to echo some of my comments in chat, but I think your tool is like a perfect tool to literally strap Copilot on top of. You should check out like custom chat GPTs because they do have OpenAI actions. Like if you use the OpenAI spec, that could jump into your remote service, which might strap a chat interface on this, and I don't know, it could open a lot more doors. So just some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I've looked at. So one of the things we've got is we were part of an accelerator, and with that we got a whole stack of credits. Like we literally are sitting on like $150,000 worth of Azure credits, and then we've got a bunch of OpenAI credits and and so forth. And so we started to look a little bit at OpenAI. And it's a relatively straightforward provider to build, but again, it's sort of you'd have to sort of coach it to get the responses that you want in terms of tabular responses, instead of textual chat type responses. But it's something that we're looking at. What we did think of doing, and this is sort of what we're looking at in terms of using say ChatGPT or those sort of tools, probably that one because we've got OpenAI credits, but is things like response interpretation. And again, I'm staggered that Terraform's not doing this already, where they'll send you back the 403 or 401 or whatever response code and message, which is going to be directly from the provider. Whereas oftentimes what I want is just tell me what's wrong. And I could take the same response and say, I'm doing Terraform apply, I'm getting this, and I give it to ChatGPT. Oh, right, okay, what you need to do is do this, this, and this, and this. It's like, well, okay, what in Terraform? Just tell me that. So it's like we're looking to sort of build stuff like that in the core, where it's like instead of just sending people back a native HTTP response status message, is can we put that in plain English and say, okay, right, what you've done here is you've tried to create this without that. And so that's sort of where we're looking to probably incorporate like the AI type stuff a little bit. But again, we use this stuff. So what's pretty cool, in the latest build of ChatGPT, so the latest release, ChatGPT Plus, I can't remember what month it is that it knows about StackQL, because it's crawled it and it understands it. You can actually ask it to generate you a StackQL query to query Azure VM instances, and it will give you proper StackQL grammar. So yeah, you can just ask it on the latest build of ChatGPT. So it can actually help you write queries and do things like that. But the queries themselves are pretty intuitive, and where there is complexity, because obviously the JSON response bodies can get quite gnarly. They like again, in Azure, you bury all the gold in a properties object. But
Yeah.
we have a lot of like Kieran said, we expose all the built-in functions, or most of the built-in functions, from SQLite and Postgres within our grammar, so you can lift stuff up. So I can use like JSON extract. I think I showed some examples in the previous thing where I can lift things, I can pull things out of an object. I can also do things like if you've got arrays, we've got the table valued functions where we can turn an array into rows. This is really common with a lot of the IAM type responses. So yeah, we can do all kinds of cool stuff with that to sort of, again, get you to a simplified output for reporting or analysis. And that's just part, of all the stuff we've sort of baked into it. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking more of like because you can go to ChatGPT and be like, hey, write a T-SQL query for this business case, right?
Yep.
Since ChatGPT knows about your SQL language, right? You could potentially say, hey, within this context, um, tell me how many virtual machines are oversized or over provisioned or something like that,
Yep.
or
Yep.
don't have tags or something like that. And then
You mean within to actually run the query for you? Is that what you mean?
to actually run the query, right? So, but that would require like integrate, like there's different ways you could implement this, right? But I mean, the most basic is a custom chat GPT that has OpenAI actions that could invoke your, like you'd have to do some kind of thing on the back end, like to register like the Azure subscriptions and the AWS accounts and stuff. But like
Yeah,
that
auth
would
is
be
going to
that.
be the issue. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
there'd have to be some sort of out of bound off, unless you just go full bore Copilot and build your own Copilot. But that would be like kind of the North Star in my mind, is like use ChatGPT to generate the SQL, then execute it in my environment, and then respond back the results across Azure and AWS and all the things, right? That would be, you kind of built the engine, right? But
Yes.
like
Yeah.
to really scale to like I think a broader audience, right, of operators, right, people that
Yeah.
aren't
Yeah.
necessarily hands-on tech. I mean, it would open so many avenues of use
Yeah,
cases.
that's a pretty cool idea. I think we've sort of looked at, we've built some higher order stuff. Like we've actually got, and like we could literally sit here 2 hours and show you everything we've done, and still probably not have enough time. But we've actually built some other stuff we've built like higher order products. We've got a monitor product, we've built a prototype on. We've actually built it for GitHub as like a open source monitor sort of thing. And we use materialized views and then send Slack and Discord messages to say, Mark has just started the repo, or Steven's just followed the org, or anything like that. And so we've sort of built these things where they're not necessarily, you don't have to be a SQL operator to use them. You can actually you can use them without knowing SQL. But and also things like whether it's a Slack bot or anything like that, where similar sort of concept to what you talked about the Copilot is, ask a natural language question, which gets translated into a query. And it could even be complex, like, how many VMs do I have across Google, Azure, and AWS? Just give me a
Yeah.
rough count.
Yeah.
And it's like, as long as it knows some entry points, so like your subscription, your Azure subscription, your potentially, if you've got Google's very hierarchical in terms of projects and folders, things like that. But assuming you're at the sort of org level, and likewise with AWS, if you've got your creds. So sort of things like that. I think, it's like, how can we make it a little bit more non-SQL friendly? But again, it's, we're hardcore SQL guys. Like I've been I literally started SQL Server 6.5. You know, in the late 90s, that was my indoctrination to databases and SQL, and I've just been a SQL fanatic ever since. And that's why when we're asked to run all these reports, and we're having to run all this CLI stuff, and you run this CLI for this, and run this CLI for this, and then do this, and it's like, why can't we just use SQL for this stuff? Yeah, it's all data, and that was sort of, yeah, like, so we don't want to shy away. Like, we want more SQL, because we're just, fanatics, right?
Yeah. I mean, expert users drop into SQL, people that just want to, talk to Alexa and ask her what time it is and stuff like that. Then you're like, what am I spending on, Azure VMs, or what are my list me off the most expensive resource groups that I have, let me know. Just silly questions like that, for somebody to probe their environment, where that would reduce, the time that it would take for somebody to go actually look that stuff up.
Yeah.
It's cool
And
stuff, man.
some stuff's harder to
I'm going to
find,
jump in
yeah.
real quick. Sorry, guys. I have a meeting I need to run to, but I'm going to leave this open for y'all. I'm not going to end it for everyone, so I trust you guys can behave like adults and leave once the time comes.
Thanks,
But
Stephen.
one thing I'll say, Jeff, Kieran, if people want to contact you, how should they contact you for questions? And I won't even stay around for the answer. But
Yeah, so what I'll do is
Thanks,
I'll send you, Stephen, I'll
Thanks.
send you some information, and then you can distribute it. Yeah,
sounds good.
cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Hey, Stephen, I
Yeah.
got to drop too, but
Later.
yeah, it's cool
That's
stuff.
right.
Just
No,
wanted,
yeah. Look,
just
I
wanted to
really
say that.
appreciate everyone's time. Yeah, and I'm, like I said, we're happy to stick around and answer more questions. There's a really interesting one about non-GA features in Azure and AZ API. So we've looked a bit at the AZ API Terraform provider. So yeah, you could use this as a complement to help you develop Azure API or AZ API routines. AZ API. Sorry, I'm bilingual here. So yeah, you could query. Essentially, we are a direct representation of the API. So if you want to know fields and you want to know response bodies, you can get that stuff directly from us, and then go ahead and model your Azure API Terraform routines. That's actually a good potential use case as a complement. Yeah. So again, this is just a dev tool. I can install it right alongside Terraform, essentially using the same auth as Terraform, run queries, as a complement. So yeah. So was there anyone else have any other sort of questions that they wanted to ask? Thoughts, comments, anything?
There was something in the chat about using this as a replacement for Terraform. I don't know if you already addressed that, mate, because I dropped in and out a couple of times trying to get the screen.
Yeah, I responded. I said, look, it can be a complement to Terraform, but you could also do imperative IAC, just like the CDKs do. Like your Pulamis and your CDKs do. We cover all the routes. So again, it's a Swiss Army knife. We see it probably more as a complement to Terraform, like something I can use with Terraform. But if I needed to do simple scaffolding stuff that it was easier to do imperatively, I could use as well.
I think from the technical standpoint, just a long form answer is that, like, we don't really want to compete in that space, but we do have strategy for full life cycle management of multi-cloud resources using SQL, but it's a bit of a process. So the process is that we're going to implement Aries, treating for those SQL people that the people that are interested in transactions and rollback. It's like the canonical algorithm for like recovery and isolation in transactions, and so we just effectively treat all of the cloud providers that we talk to as somewhat unreliable hard disks, and then do transaction semantics on top of that. Eventually, we'd have to then build that first, and then from there some ability to maintain the history of those transactions themselves, and do full lifecycle management. So that's probably 12 to 24 months away, but it's something we're shooting for, but take some time. Yep.
Cool. Does anyone else have any other questions someone ask? Anything else? I'll like I said, I'll send around to Stephen, you know, the pack that we've done and some of the links and things like that, and how if you want to contact us, how you contact us. We would love to work closer with Microsoft. Yeah, we need probably I guess some feedback and things like that in terms of, especially with our new provider that's about to be released. So yeah, okay, cool. So look, if there's no other questions, we can probably drop off, and I'll send details to how you can get in touch. But I really appreciate everyone's time, and thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.